with New York City. You know, I was born and raised in Harlem, and the team that we're talking about is called the Harlem Wrens. They played at a dance hall in Harlem, and that was their home court. And they were the best team in professional basketball prior to the NBA, especially in the 1930s. But they couldn't get any recognition, and they couldn't get into the established leagues because it was an all-black team.
Did you know about this growing up, or did somebody tell you about this group?
I knew a little bit about it growing up, but had no idea exactly what the story entailed. So after I retired from professional basketball, I started doing more research and got into the depth of the story, and was able to write a book about it and have it so that it was in a concise form, and went from there. You know, found people that wanted to invest in the movie, a little bit of entrepreneurship there, and got it done.
Where can people find this now beyond the website?
Comcast Video on Demand, and it'll be on Netflix starting May 1st.
That's terrific. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is our guest. On the Shoulders of Giants, a story of the greatest basketball team you've never heard of. Maybe the greatest college basketball game, one of them ever, was played in this city in 1968. You mentioned this on your website. I was looking at it a little bit earlier today. Still very vivid about everything about that game, or does, as you get a little bit older, some of the details not get not so clear?
Well, a lot of the details, you know, I've forgotten. It was only about 40 years ago. But, you know, it meant a lot to me to try to win that game. And I had gotten my eye injured about 10 days prior to the game. We played University of California, Berkeley, and I got a finger in the eye, and really it scratched my cornea, and I had to go into the hospital. So I was in the Jewel Stein Eye Clinic for about eight or 9 days lying on my back. And I got out of there and came to Houston, went to one preliminary practice, and tried to play that game. I didn't have much to give, but I felt that unless we had me on the team, we wouldn't have a chance to win the game.
Did you, as kids, when Coach Wooden came to you and said, "Hey, I got this idea, we're going to go play in Houston, Texas at the Astrodome," do you remember what your initial take was of that? And then take it to the next step, when you walked in and played in this cavernous building with the thousands and thousands of people, I mean, how vivid is that memory of being in that situation?
Well, the preliminary to that, you know, just finding that we're going to play in the Astrodome, I'd never played in a venue like that, so I had no idea of what to anticipate.
Yeah.
So, you know, it all struck me when I went in there. We had like a shoot-around practice in there, and it was, as you say, it was cavernous. But the thing of it was, the court was out by second base. So, you know, the backdrop for the basket, the closest wall to the end court was, you know, maybe 100 yards away.
Yeah.
It was really a very odd place to...
And odd to shoot, I'm assuming. You couldn't, you know, because Paulie, you clearly you felt very comfortable, and even in the Pac-10 arenas where you'd play, and you could still feel comfortable in the venues, but to have this huge stadium as a backdrop must have been difficult.
Really affected your depth perception.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, it was like that for both teams. But it was a close game, and Houston prevailed. Elvin Hayes had a wonderful game, and Houston prevailed.
Do you enjoy? I mean, I know that you've done some acting, you've done some coaching, you've been around in and around it. I mean, can I catch you at your house on the Thursday night watching a doubleheader game, or are you more of a you know, in-person kind of guy in terms of connoisseur of basketball?
That's difficult to say. If there's a game that interests me, I'll go see it. But for the most part, I don't go, because when I go there, I'm me, and, you know, it gets to be an issue. You know, I can't sit and watch the game unless, you know, I got people there keeping people away.
Will you send the lazy boy and watch a game on television? Are you still actively watching the sport?
There are occasions when I will watch a game, but, you know, ever since I was a kid, and still to this day, I'm more of a baseball fan than I am a professional baseball.
Then tell my audience they shouldn't be going nuts because the Astros went 0-3 to start this season.
That's really tough. My team, the Dodgers, took 3 of 4 from the defending world champs, the Giants. So we got off to a good start this season.
Well, I know you got a lot of these interviews to get to. I can just tell you, I was 17 years old in 1989, and my friend Ed, who's listening to me right now, is your biggest fan, or he's your biggest fan. Let me see if I get this right. he's number one, and you're number one in his books. As I try to say this 3 times.
Well, I'm honored.
We went and bought your book, and you had an autograph signing at the Alabama bookstore. So we'll never forget that moment. Was that hard trying to the post-career, trying to figure out what you want to do, whether it was going to be as an actor or as a basketball coach? I mean, was the transition harder than you thought it was going to be?
The transition was harder, but for me, it took me like 3 or 4 years of doing what I wanted to do, because I had to get over the burnout. I had never had the opportunity to do what I wanted to do with my time while I was playing basketball, both in college and in the professional ranks. So for about 3 or 4 years there, I just dealt with the burnout and lived this life. But then, it gets to a point where you have to do something with your life. And I started writing, and I'm glad I did. It's probably what I would have done if I had to have a real job.
Mm-hmm. More films coming up for you at all?
I hope so.
Do you like the documentary, or do you want to get back on the big screen?
I would love to do a dramatic film, but the documentary worked. It's just that doing this particular documentary, we only had 40 seconds of film of the Harlem Wrens team. So we had to put a documentary together using very little real, true live footage of them, because nobody shot them, and we were very lucky to find the film that we did.
Last question, and I'll let you go. The Skyhook, it's yours. Are you surprised that more guys haven't tried to perfect it? I mean, Elijah had the jump hook, and so many post players have it. But the true Skyhook that's just impossible to block when it's successfully put together. Are you surprised that more guys haven't tried to develop that shot?
I think that the people that teach young kids how to play the game don't know how to teach that shot. So it's kind of fallen into, like high button shoes. It's just out of style and out of people's minds. But human physiology hasn't changed any, and hook shot really works. You just have to take a few moments to learn how to shoot it.
Thanks for the time. And again, more information about the documentary On the Shoulders of Giants can be found at your website at KareemAbdul-Jabbar.com. Thank you for coming by today.
My pleasure.
All right,
Take care.
That's going to wrap things up. Thanks for Charlie.